who am I? My name is Pavel Barta. I am originally from Czechoslovakia. So I was born in 1978 in Czechoslovakia, in communist country. I grew up in a communist family, surprisingly so. I managed to stay there half of my life. So when I was in my 20s, I managed to move out of the country. I lived in Scotland for 2 years. I came back to Czech Republic at that time. I moved again to France, and I lived in Ireland for 7 years. I moved back to France. I moved to Belgium. I stayed in Canada. So who am I? So I'm originally from the Czech Republic, but I consider myself quite cosmopolitan. So I moved around quite a bit. My wife is French. We have 5 children. We speak 3 languages at home. It's crazy to some degree, but we like the culture of multicultural homes. So we keep moving around. 4 of our children were born in Dublin, Ireland, and 1 child was born in France. Professionally, I had a chance to have a very unique career. So in a sense that for a long time, I didn't know what I want to do. I don't think I'm unique in this sense. I think there are a lot of people out there who just, they just follow the flow. You just do things that your parents tell you to do, or you just follow your friends and you end up doing something. You're like, why am I doing this? So actually, when I was young, it was even more complicated for me because I never went to high school. I was labeled as cognitively impaired child. So by the time I was 15, I was supposed to go to high school, but the system told me, nope, you're not good enough. So instead of going to high school, you will go and work in a factory and learn to work in a factory. And lo and behold, I went there, and I didn't do very well either there. And I had an accident. I had 600 kilograms falling down on my foot. I caused it. And what happened in there is that as a result, they wanted to amputate my leg. And because there was a lot of infection, it was damaged. And I worried that I will never walk again. I'm not smart. I will never, have a good job. So it was very difficult. But I remember getting out of the hospital, and for the first time in my life, I started to read. I went to the library, and I got a coach. The coach was supposed to help me to rehabilitate and start walking again. And when I look back, I discovered that I never really been cognitively impaired, but I was shy. I was insecure. I was unfocused. I didn't know what I wanted in my life. And all of this environment I had within myself disallowed me to be able to achieve anything I was doing. So by the time I figure out what I want to do in life a little bit, and I got a bit of coaching that helped me to gain confidence, I took courage and I went to high school when I was 18. And I was petrified. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. None of my parents went to high school. I'm like the only person in my family who has higher education. And so I qualified when I was 18. And when I graduated when I was 21, I topped the school. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? This is so amazing. And right after this, I went to Scotland and I learned English, and I came back to Czech Republic, and I got hired into international companies. And I discovered that my career is quite limited because of my lack of education. And so people say, you have a great potential, you're good with people, you can get things done, but you cannot get into higher positions because you don't have education. And around the time I met my wife, who is French, and we married in France, and I said, I would love to go to university. So we packed our car, we moved to Ireland, and I studied there. And I got my honors degree in HRM. I studied human rights. I was working in NGOs. I was having 2 different jobs. We started our family. And then I decided, okay, I was petrified, like, will I do this? Can I get my degree? And I did very well. And I'm like, maybe I can get a master's degree. And I went into prestigious school in France to do MBA, and I did very well again. And when I look back, I discovered that, our capacity to be focused, our capacity to have a vision about what we want to do in the future, and having confidence in yourself, being able to set and achieve goals, being able to get along with other people. All of these skills, I noticed that might be even more important than your cognitive capacities, and they enhance your capacity to get things done. So by the time I finished my MBA, I already had international experience in public sector, private sector. I did HRM, I was in production, I did project management, I did financial services. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I can do anything I want to do almost. And so briefly after my MBA, I worked in EU Parliament. I did human rights. I loved it, and I wanted to go into politics a little bit, but it was too difficult. So I couldn't get through. I didn't have the network, but I did manage to meet people in Vienna, in Austria, who were interested in my research. And my research was in emotional intelligence in multicultural teams. So I had a privilege to start running workshops for EU organizations, where I teach leadership and teamwork and performance management and development, personal development, with special emphasis on emotional intelligence. So I do cognitive science, neuroscience, behavior psychology, and I created courses and training just for leaders, for teams, to be able to become their very best selves. So that became my very clear career. And as I was doing so, I discovered that I love to teach, I love to educate, I love to train. I think I'm quite good at it, at least at the feedback I get. And I wanted to teach on the side of doing my business. And I had a chance to work for another French university, and I still work for them now, where I teach HRM. And then I got into SHG, I work for another university. And so here I am. So who am I? So I think I'm someone who believes that our capacity to understand ourselves and understand other people and getting along with other people is extremely important, especially in today's world. So your capacity to understand technology, your capacity to get along with other people, and your capacity to get things done with and through people is extremely important. I think we exaggerate the need for cognitive skills to some degree. So I see in higher education a lot of weaknesses, in a sense that we throw at kids a lot of data and we ask them to memorize things, and I don't think that's the way to go in the future. I think we need to have kids who are resilient. We need to have kids who can adapt, and we need kids who can take some cognitive understanding and apply it in their lives. And these are very different skills than I used to see in education in general. So I took, it was a long answer, right? But I took you on a journey of who I am, where I come from, and what I try to do. It could be a weakness because if I was in a situation where I thought I could do anything, and the moment I was doing something I didn't like it, I switched because I was looking for things that really will touch my heart, right? And where I feel this is my place. And a lot of people are scared of it. So when I send my CV, like, who are you, and how come you have done so many different things, and will you stay with us, and will you be with us for 2 days? So that can be perceived as a weakness, but I think it's a great strength, because when I meet politicians, when I meet regular people, people from production, when I talk to people from financial sector, when I talk to HR people, because of the broad experience, it allows me to have this greater connection and understanding, which is great for teaching, because when you talk to students, the worst thing you can do is just have a book in your hand, like, I read this and do this, and they have no clue because they have no experience. So what I do, I have been there, I have done that, I have touched it, and here you merge it with theory, and you allow the students you take them on the journey with you, because you have this practical experience that you can show them. And very often the practice is very different than theory. So it's good when you can bridge that theory in practice and give them some strategies and competencies and knowledge that work in this. I have started with leadership. So I do leadership. Then I have been asked to do communication. So I do communication as well, and people management, and intercultural management. So we think of intercultural management, leadership, communication, and people management. Leadership. And why I love leadership is because, you know what? I think all of us can be leaders, and people don't understand that. People think leadership is a title. Leadership is a position in a company. And even though it is true to some degree, I do believe that we all have a capacity to lead and change the world. And I have this little exercise that I do with people all around the world, okay, with my clients from Northern America to Asia to Europe, and my students, where I ask them, think of a leader in your life that helped you to become who you are today. Somebody who inspired you or helped you to grow and progress, and who really made a difference. And I have done this all around the world, right? And I always have the same answers. And you know what? Lo and behold, most of the answers are not like a manager. It's like, it's my mom. It's my grandma. It's my dad. It's my parents, or it's a teacher at school, or it's somebody I met a long time ago who said something really changed me. And we know from research that around 50% of leaders around the world don't deliver any value to their organizations. We're pretty bad at it. And so I teach my students about where the real leadership comes from. And it comes from within. It comes from who you really are, understanding your values, understanding what you stand for, having a vision about how you want to maybe change the world, or what you stand for, and how you present yourself, how you build relationship with other people. How do you inspire? Do you help people to grow, or do you kind of push them and squeeze them and burn them out and then throw them away? So I think leadership is something we need to learn, and we are not very good at it. And so I love to see those eyes lighted up of my students, where I show them, you are leaders. All of you are leaders. All of you have this capacity. But first you need to discover, who you are. And once you know who you are, we can help you to get on the journey and help you to achieve the things that you set for yourself. And along the way, allow others to do the same thing. So how can you unleash and harness collective genius in the class or in an organization, and not just tell people shut up and do what I tell you? It must be done differently, especially in today, where I think we are moving to some degree away from the leadership styles we saw in the past, where people just listened and obey. People, nowadays people are educated much more, and they desire to be treated different than they used to. First of all, we struggle. When you look at the world, COVID, and we are blocked. And because we are blocked and we cannot really move forward, there's a lot of frustration, and there is anger, there is fear, and some of these feelings, they make us feel not only that they're uncomfortable, but they make us rigid. When we are angry and frustrated and chronically stressed, cognitively your brain really narrows down, and we become repetitive in what we do, and we lose our capacity to connect to other people and to be open-minded. So to some degree, it really diminishes our capacity to thrive, and we are limited cognitively and emotionally and physiologically. It affects our health. By the way, your emotions affect up to 20% of your physical health. Okay. So, and sadly enough, I have been speaking about this with a lot of students, not only in this school, but in other ones, and they struggle. People do feel sad, depressed. Some of them are anxious and even angry and frustrated. And so as I teach my classes, I always sneak in, some of the strategies to help them to manage this climate. So what are some of the things that we need to be able to do these days? Realize, first thing you need to do is to realize how you feel. Realize that you are having some strong emotions, and realize that they are driving the way you think and the way you act and the way you respond to your environment. And they might really limit your capacity to focus and to build relationships, etc., etc. So first step is to recognize that you feel something. Secondly, recognize that, not all of the feelings you are experiencing are true. Feelings are, some electrochemical signals from your brain and around your heart. and sometimes they can be very powerful. And if we treat them as reality, they can really throw you away. We call them emotional hijacks, where you feel angry, or you are so stressed and afraid about something that you act in a way that you regret afterwards. You're afraid you don't apply for the job, or you get angry, you scream at someone, and then you're like, what have I done? So we call it, rigidity. So I teach students about recognizing emotions and creating a space between what you think and what you feel and how you respond. So, and in that space, ideally you put your values and your aspirations. So now somebody might really upset me and I feel this strong emotion, I want to tell you off because you are honestly mistreating me, right? I pause, I notice what I think, I notice what I feel, and I ask myself, what would the best Pavel do in this situation? Or in a long term, what is the best answer to give here and now? And then I act. So these can be cognitive agility skills, and there are other skills that I teach in simple things like, how do you stop this chronic stress? How do you bounce back and regenerate? How do you generate positive emotions of, I feel peaceful, I feel serene, I feel motivated and inspired, I feel, connected with myself, with my values, instead of, oh my goodness, I can't stand all of this. So these things seem to be tiny and to some degree unimportant to some people. And I think it's dangerous because around 2/3 of people around the world don't really know what they feel. They just say, I feel bad, I feel good, but understanding clearly what you feel. I feel stressed. Why do you feel stressed? Where does it come from? And how can you manage it? So these skills can make a huge impact, especially today. You can see the division in politics around the world. You can see how some politicians materialize on frustration and fear in society to benefit themselves and to manipulate the masses, because it's much easier when you're frustrated and angry and to tell you, hey, I'm here, follow me. We are social beings, right? We have social brain. And we know that when you are connected with people that you respect and they love you back, you have good positive relationship, it's one of the strongest variables we know for you to be able to bounce back, to become resilient. That just having this connection with people that you love, speaking up about how you feel, having somebody who listens to you, having a laugh with somebody. Now, this is extremely important. And not only in our personal life, but in a team environment. We know that those thriving teams, they have something, and individuals as well, we call them ratios of positivity versus negativity. So the teams that are thriving and the most productive, they have, 3 experience of something positive and versus negative. In other words, if you are in a team that is toxic and where you don't get along with other people and you feel anxious about this person and you feel angry and you hate him, it really hurts us. So, but if we have a team where we come in and we have reciprocity, when we help one another and we feel like, hey, I want to be here, this helps us to bounce back. So we need those human interactions, and without them, we struggle. The loneliness is can kill to some degree, and it's really uncomfortable and has consequences. So we need people. We are, that's how we are made. It changes during my lifespan. I used to play ice hockey. Ice hockey on the ice a lot. I was semi-professional to some degree when I was young. I was doing all sports were for me. So sports, my sister and I, my dad, there was a big deal. So I think one of the reasons why I was so not fine when I was 14, 15, when I had this accident, is because they told me you will never do sports again. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not smart. I don't go to high school. I cannot do sports. I hated, everything. And so the fact that I could get back into doing sports again afterwards made a big difference. So I love sports. But as you grow older, right, it becomes more complicated. So I still do a lot of sports with my kids. I have 4 boys. They love sports too. So one of my hobbies, I think, is a family. I love my family. This is my number number two value in my life. And so I try to spend a lot of time with them. I love arts. I love music. I love reading. I love politics. I love people in a sense that I love to study psychology, mainly because I see, I come from a background where I was held back because of how I felt, right? And in my research, I saw that there is, huge potential for us to manage this life better. And unfortunately, many of those emotional and cognitive strategies are being taught just to executives. And one of my goals when I was finishing my thesis in 2014 was, how can I take this executive education for top executives about emotional intelligence and bring it to everybody? So I spend a lot of time still about developing trainings and coaching in emotional intelligence. So it's one of my hobbies as well. And I managed to create some kind of trainings that were sold to other consultancies in France, and they implemented it at all levels in organizations, which is fascinating. So we talk about production field, we talk about, receptionists, we talk about people working in production, and they were trained in the skills that are usually just for executives. Because I believe that everybody deserves to have a chance to learn things that are valuable for everyday life, right? And that we know make a difference. According to some studies, some people claim your EQ skills are twice as important than your IQ. Some studies I saw indicate that your IQ matters between 10 to 30% at work, and your EQ between 30 to 60. And when you climb the ladder in an organization, when you become a leader, it's up to 80%, because it's no longer about you, right, doing things. It's you about managing other people, right? So it's all about, how do you get along with others? How do you inspire? How do you manage conflict? Can you be influential? Can you transfer knowledge? Do you use empathy, cognitive, emotional? Do you understand people around you, their strengths and weaknesses, and how do you use them? And how do you handle yourself in general? Do you know what you stand for? And are you adaptable? Can you set and achieve goals? Do you manage to remain optimistic in this crazy world? Because you need it to keep that energy, right? Because when we start to, go into despair, then we suffer. So that's my hobby, because I love what I do, because I see it makes a difference. So what really drives me in life is to be able to teach someone or something that will make a difference in their life. So that's maybe a bit cheesy, but that's sort of what drives me in life.
Okay.
Goodness, Indian dish. I love Indian food. I have strategies. So imagine that you have pockets, and in those pockets around you, you have some strategies that you utilize whenever you need them. So whenever I find myself fearful or anxious or overwhelmed, I try to go into the pocket and do something that I know works for me. So for example, if I feel overwhelmed, okay, what does it mean actually overwhelmed? It's good to understand that meaning overwhelmed, I mean that there's too many things in my life, okay, and I can't sleep at night because it keeps me awake. So it's a signpost to me that maybe I need to prioritize. I cannot do everything. So I get up in the morning and I say, okay, write down things that are in my mind and the tasks and projects, and ask myself, okay, you cannot do this. This is unrealistic. If you keep doing this, you're going to burn out. So I literally prioritize and say, okay, these 3 things are important and those will have to wait. Okay, if I feel anxious, which is different than overwhelmed, I am worried about some outcomes of my interview with somebody, or I have to teach a class and I feel unprepared. I notice that my mind is telling me, oh my goodness, it's going to be disaster, you're unprepared, and I have this talk, we all have this self-talk, right? And I notice it and I stop it and I say, okay, hold on, okay. This is your negative mind talking to you, right? That it's going to be disaster, blah, blah, blah. And I says, no, I know I can handle it. I have done it before. I can do it again. prepare yourself. What do you do now? How can you get ready for this? You can do this. So I use positive self-talk. I try to reframe situations. So instead of saying this COVID, oh, this is disaster for your business, right? I cannot travel around the world anymore. This is going to be disaster. Okay, this is a problem. I agree, but it can also be an opportunity. Okay, how can I use this time in COVID to master my French, to prepare new trainings, to spend more time with my family, and to build stronger relationships? So we always have this capacity to be cognitively agile. We don't have to believe everything that comes to our mind, and we can work with it. And so another example I can show you, not always I achieve to do things the way I want to. And sometimes there are these little failures we have, during the day and week. And very often we treat ourselves very critically. There's the failure and you tell say, oh my goodness, I'm horrible. So I catch myself doing these things, and I practice self-compassion. Self-compassion is that I say, well, if my best friend comes to me with the same problem, same failure, what kind of advice would I give to my best friend? And then I try to apply what I would tell my best friend to myself, because we know that when we deal with our best friends, we often are much more kind and compassionate and forgiving. And sometimes that's what we need in this world. We don't have much control over everything. And there are failures, there are frustrations. And so treating ourselves with self-compassion, meaning that, okay, it didn't work out. What can I learn from it? And let's move on. How can I do it better next time, instead of beating myself about it? So I have a lot of different pockets with different strategies that I use in different situations, and we could be here all day talking about it.